Hey guys, so welcome back to the channel. So today I've got a bit of a, I'm going to start it off with a question today. So the question is, can you buy a decent-ish car for about £1,000 or less? So today I've brought my parents' 1995 Ford Fiesta. It is a 1.25 and I'll show you the engine in a bit. But yeah, overall it's a very, very good car. So yeah, overall it's a very good car. We've had it for a good 5 years. The background of this car is my brother needed a temporary car to get him through, getting to work and stuff. So my parents naturally helped him out, and they got him this Fiesta. He had it for a couple of years, and then didn't no longer need it. And my parents thought, well, we might as well keep it because it's a nice little car. When we originally bought it, it had just under 30,000 miles. But yeah, so we've had this car for probably about 5 or 6 years now. It's typically used as a tip car that we use. My mum and dad use it to go drop rubbish off, and they also used it to help them move into their bungalow as well. So it's a good car overall. So let me take you for a walk around.
Lately you don't feel like yourself, and you kinda hate it. You suppress all of the thoughts in your head and say it's complicated. You hide your pain, but I can see it etched on your face. I know the feeling, swear you're okay, but you're barely breathing. Don't you walk away.
The front of the car, this car is sporting a whopping 1.25. It's a Zetec S engine by the looks of it, 16 volt. It produces 75 brake horsepower, which is plentiful if you're 17 or 18 or you've just passed your test, or even if you need a simple runabout. And the benefit of this is it's very cheap to run, which I will talk about later in my drive video. But yeah, it's been fairly looked after. It had sort of like a mini restoration done by myself. I went around the entire car originally when we got it back off my brother. Waxed the entire thing. I waxed it multiple times, polished it multiple times, and then I even spent time doing the interior of the engine bay. There are a couple of bits that I need retouching up, but overall, good little peppy engine. It's a little sprightful as well. Yeah, can't tell you much about that. Good little engine. So I'm a little bit tethered. My new mics that I bought don't tend to work right now outside, which is a bit weird. But anyway, going to the rear of the car. As you can see, it's very, very small, which you probably think to yourself, it's very, very practical, it's very manoeuvrable. Well, I'll touch on that later as to why that's not quite as easy as one thought. In terms of its storage or its practicality, it does have 5 doors. It's also got a fairly decent boot, so I'll dive into that a bit more. But overall, not a bad little car. As you can see, there is a sunroof at the top as well, which is a prime specification. But yeah, it's not a bad looking car. I wouldn't say it's the prettiest looking thing. Most 17, 18-year-olds probably think this is a little bit embarrassing to drive, but you know, as we go for a little drive later, you'll see why it's not too embarrassing. It may look it, but it's not too bad. So unlike the Mazda MX-5, which I test drove the other week, the boot actually opens on this. Now, one of the prime features that this doesn't have is the fact that you have to open everything with this key. Probably shouldn't put the key on there in case somebody robs it, but that's how we roll. But, so, as you're probably thinking, well, why is it I have to just use a key? Why can't I just, click it? Well, it doesn't have remote central locking. So if you want to open all of these doors, I'm sorry, but you have to use the key. And if you open the front doors, you think, maybe it'll open the back doors. It does not. So then you have to go around the car, click the door handle from the inside, and then you're in. So if I open this boot now, as you can see, there is a bit of a mess right now, but gas struts are going. But the boot's fairly big, It's got pop-down seats. Well, I'll show you later once I can get it to work. But the boot's very practical. You can probably get pram, all your Mackies, all your birds in the back, maybe. All your bitches in the back, bruv. But yeah, it's not too impractical. If you compared it to my Mini, for example, or the Minis that I've had before, yeah, it's bigger. It does the job. So I was going to get some pano shots of this car, some like nice B-roll, but I just got interrupted by a bunch of bramble pickers, so it's all going well today. Right, so I'm going to take the car for a bit of a drive because the bramble pickers are fucking hell. The bramble pickers are pissing me off. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go for a test drive. I hope the mic comes up clearly, so that'll be handy. But yeah, let's go for a bit of a test drive. Ugh. So you're probably wondering why I struggled to turn the car at the very start of this drive. That's because one of the car's many features that it doesn't have is power steering. Now, it's not too bad when you're driving along, but when you're setting off or trying to get the car out of a garage, it is a bit of a pain in the arse. Another thing this car doesn't have is traction control. I don't think it's got stability control either, and it most certainly doesn't have ABS. So if someone was to brake check you, you're either going to slide or you're either going to slide or you're going to go into the back of them. So not ideal. But once you get up to speed, it drives fairly nice. It's quite airy. That's partly due to the fact that it's got a very light interior. The steering wheel is very plasticky, as you would in a car this old, and most Fords generally did in the 90s, have very plasticky steering wheels. Apart from that, it's fairly easy to drive. There's no buttons on it, you just got the horn. So some features that it does have actually is a cassette player. Yeah, a cassette player. It's very 90s, I'll give it that. But that was the stereo of choice in those areas. There was no things such as CDs, and even people in Gen Z, well, I'm early Gen Z, but late Gen Z, wouldn't actually know what a CD is if you showed them one, nor a floppy disk. So, you know. But if you're a 17-year-old and you've just passed your test, or if you're someone that's just going up the window. But yeah, if you're a 17-year-old and you've just passed your test, or you're someone who hasn't got a lot of disposable income, you need a car that's fairly cheap, you're probably not going to complain too much about having these features. You can get cars with these features, obviously, but it's going to, you know, if you're getting a car that's got a lot of features on it, bound to, and maybe slightly newer, it might have something wrong with it, like a Peugeot or something. I'll probably just stay away from that. But with this kind of car, if you got a cassette player, 9 times out of 10, if you're 17, you're not gonna keep it. You're probably gonna put like a new Pioneer in it, or you're gonna put in maybe one of those proper Fast and Furious type 90s pop-up stereos with a screen. That'd be sick. Or you're going to put an Apple CarPlay system in it, but I don't actually think it would fit an Apple CarPlay system in it. You might struggle to put one in, so I wouldn't recommend it. If you have got this car, you can put one of those cassette to aux things. You've got to pay some good money though to get a good one, or you get one of those FM transmitter things, whatever you fancy. So going back to the driving, would I be concerned about power steering, lack of it, or the ABS? I wouldn't really. As you're going along, it's quite chilled. What isn't chill is its aircon. It doesn't have any. Say what? Now, some cars still have this problem, not even modern day cars. But on a day like today, where it's 23 degrees, Yeah, I'd probably try and get some aircon. I would put the windows down, but obviously there's going to be a lot of wind noise. You can, actually, if you twist a little knob up here, a squeak, it's got a nice sunroof, which, you know, some modern cars don't even have. It's an optional extra, but I think it was standard in this car. Might have to double check it, but it was standard. Yeah, once you've gotten acclimatized to this wet box, unless it's not 23 degrees, and you've got accustomed to the way that it doesn't handle like most modern day cars. Oh god, am I in fifth? Sorry, going back to my story. If you got acclimatized to the lack of aircon, the lack of ABS, the lack of power steering, what can I tell you? Well, let's get a little runabout. Does the job. Fuel wise is very good. Put it in perspective, we live about 60 miles from Leeds, and sometimes my dad will use this as his going to Leeds car. So rather than taking his Volvo, he will take this just to give it a bit of a run out. And surprisingly, this car can actually do probably about 2 to 2.5 trips to Leeds and back. So if you think, what, 240 plus another 60, 300 miles? 300 miles isn't bad in a car like this. 300 miles to a tank isn't actually bad in any car, really. It's quite a good distance. Not everyone's going to do 300 miles. I wouldn't use this car for, say, driving down 240 miles down to London, but maybe there's like little hour commutes, like they're on a motorway, those sort of hour commutes, or just popping into town. Like, it's very good. Fuel wise, however, you would have to put in E5 fuel. You're not allowed to put E10 in this because of its age. Obviously, we had the new legislation come in where, I don't know why it's bounced off Brambles. We had the regulation come in where it's E10 now, so you would have to put E5 in this. And obviously the fuel is going to be a bit more with it being E5, but retrospect, it works out about £4 more than what you would typically pay for a normal tank of fuel. But that's what I see anyway when I fill the Mini. Other cost wise, servicing costs, it's a small engine car, so it's going to be very cheap to run. The tyres are fairly cheap. You can pretty much probably spend about 30 quid a tyre. The alloys aren't the wheels aren't that very big. The wheels aren't very big, so you don't have to spend loads on rubber. Oh god, that was a bit of a shake. So yeah, tax wise on this, it's £200, which isn't actually that bad considering my camera is slowly falling down. It's not a good day for this, it's too warm. So insurance wise, it's not too bad. It won't break the bank. It's a 1.25 after all. So I can't imagine it being that expensive to insure. It might be slightly more to insure than, say, a Ford KA, for example, or a Corsa, because Fiestas generally are a little bit more expensive to insure than, say, a Corsa. Not sure why. That was the case when I was 17 anyway. But I can't imagine this is very expensive to insure. I will have a look and drop the exact insurance group in there, but obviously it depends on where you live, how old you are, what your circumstances are, so you can't really put a definitive figure on insurance. So what's the things that I like about this car? Well, like I've said already, it's very cheap to run. It does the job for what you need it for. It's a nice little runabout. Despite the fact it has no power steering, it is very easy to manoeuvre. It's got a nice steering wheel for the age, that's it. But yeah, I can't complain. Seats are fairly comfortable for the type of seat that it is. It's literally almost like a bench seat in a way. But, you know, if I didn't have a lot of money and I'm gonna go So yeah, if I didn't have a lot of money and I needed a nice cheap car to run about in, I'd try and have a look for one. I'd try and get one for under £1,000. There is actually one that's on for sale at the moment. It's a nice red one. It was an ex-demonstrator. It has done 14,000 miles on the clock, which is astounding, really, for the age. That's 5-door as well. It's in very good condition. It's been serviced every year for the 14,000 miles that it's done. But that's not too bad, I would think. Now this is where I get to the things that I don't particularly like this car. On this day, specifically, it would be nice to have aircon. Aircon is essential, especially in the summer. So if you're going to buy one of these cars, maybe wouldn't buy one in the summer, unless you can get one with aircon, which I assume you can, because there's a little blank button. So this might have not been fitted with it at the time of purchase. So it's minor. Another thing, yeah, the power steering sort of puts me off, and lack of ABS. So it's not got that many safety features. It's not got many features at all. Oh, it's race day today. Okay. But the things I don't particularly like about this specific car is it has a slipping clutch, which isn't ideal. So sometimes, you might have noticed before, trying to build up the revs, it's just not building properly. It's bouncing. So, but that's a minor thing. It just needs a new clutch. But if you're looking at the clutch price, you might need to also consider the amount the car is, because it might end up, well, it will work out more than what the car's worth. So in that respect, if you're going to buy one, look for one that hasn't got a slipping clutch. But it is manageable. It's not horrendous, but it's just something to be aware of if you're going to buy one on these cars. I'd also try and make sure that it's got a fairly decent service history if you're going to buy one of these cars. Granted, at the price, it's probably going to be used and abused a little bit, so it's going to be a bit of a shame if you buy one like that. However, if you find a nice example, one that's been treated nice, it's a good little car. Can't really complain. It's not going to win speed records. As I mentioned with the MX-5, it's not designed for that. This isn't designed for speeds. You can get an ST version, I think, or a 1.6 edition. Some people even fit Puma engines in them as well, which is what I wish this had, because it doesn't pick up speed it's not brilliant on picking up speed. Wouldn't be great on a motorway, however, but you gotta be courteous. There are still cars, like I said, that still don't have, that still have 70 brake horsepower, like a Corsa, or even like the base Ford Fiestas. So, these little, or like those little Peugeots. So these are like, lightly minor problems, but it's what you get for a small engine car. So I hope that's given you a bit of an idea about this type of car. Yes, it's from 1995. Is it still usable in 2023? Yeah, you can still use it in 2023. There's nothing really wrong with it. Older cars were generally built to last. This is built to last, apart from the fact that it's got a bit of rust, which is another thing you should be aware of if you're going to buy one of these cars. Don't buy one where the floor's going to cave in. If it's got a bit of rust around the arches or the fuel filler cap, for instance, it could be a problem later down the line. But if you dry store it and you look after it and you keep on top of it, or maybe get it amended, it's not going to be too much of an issue. So I hope that gave you a great perspective on the type of car this is. Yeah, like I said, you can buy this in 2023. It's going to do you for the job. Good little first car as well. It will get you used to what driving in the 90s and the 80s was like. That's why people from those eras are very, very strong. People from the 80s and 90s might agree. Everybody in the 80s was built strong because they had no power steering. So yeah, if you like the video, please do like and subscribe. I've noticed my videos have been getting a few hundred views, which is actually quite an achievement considering I've not been pushing it socially. But so yeah, if you could subscribe to the channel, it'd be greatly appreciated. Leave a like, drop a comment, let me know how the new mic is. I've reached out to some people on Instagram. tell me to get a new motor, so let me know how the new motor's going. You know, it's cheaper than road, so we'll see what we do. Follow my Instagram as well. I'll be releasing just general day-to-day pictures of cars, really, whenever I go out and about. I have got a TikTok as well. I should probably keep more on top of that, but the game's the game. Yeah, thanks guys. I'll see you next time.